Barrett, Persuasive Speech. In the audience, I have my mother, my nephew, and his girlfriend. And my wife is running the camera. Have you recently driven by a school or a basketball court to see that they were totally empty? Chances are these kids are either playing video games or they're on some sort of social media. Now, when I was younger, we didn't have this kind of stuff, so we spent the whole day from dawn to dusk out playing, whether it was football, soccer, kickball, tag. We were outside playing, so we were always pretty physically fit. Times I get home, I have to kick my kids off their video games and their iPads to get outside and play. Now, recently I've found out that in my kids' schools they're diminishing the time that is allowed for recess and phys ed. I wasn't very happy about this, and I looked into it further, and I found, some reasons that phys ed was being depleted, eliminated, and I just want to share some of those with you today, and maybe we can all, maybe make a difference to change what's going on. The biggest problem with the loss of phys ed is, especially nowadays, we have a huge problem with obesity in our children. So, with the problem of lack of phys ed, according to a New York Times article, they're quoting as a survey performed on high schools across the nation that half the schools had absolutely no phys ed during an average week. And the National Bureau of Economics, their research website, quote, they had a percent of high school students enrolled in daily PE classes dropped from 42% to 28% from the 1990s to the 2000s. And with this lack of phys ed, there's a lack of exercise, so an increase of obesity. There's a website from the National Association of Sports and Physical Education. They state, I quote, that children ages of 6 to 13, 33% of those kids are overweight, 17 are obese. Now, the adolescents and teens from 12 to 19, they're 34% overweight and 17.6 obese. So it's pretty startling. And Dr. Rainey Whitfield from the American Heart Association says, I quote, children are now taking some of the same type medications as their parents. That's going to control their cholesterol, diabetes, and blood pressure, end quote. Now, after hearing some of this growing problem from these professionals, here are the reasons this problem is occurring. Now, one of the main causes is budget cuts. There's an article in the Concord Monitor about an Allenstown School Board Chairman, his name was Tom Erzik. He was stating, I quote, that teachers for art, music, phys ed, they'll be dismissed because they have a lack of state funding of over $500,000 a year, end quote. And Dr. John Ratty, he's a Harvard professor, he wrote a book called Spark. And he says in his book, I quote, there's a shrinking in PE and recess time for kids, and PE teachers are actually fighting like cats and dogs to hold the line on their jobs and their worth, end quote. And another reason for the lack or the loss of phys ed is the government wants to spend more time on academics and less on physical education. Now, in ESPN Outside the Lines article, they state, I quote, that the No Child Left Behind law, set in 2002, places more emphasis on your core subjects, your math, your English, your social studies, and less time allocated towards your gym classes, your arts, your music, so those are all going to suffer, end quote. The Center of Education Policy in 2007, in quote, since the No Child Left Behind law was passed, 62% of elementary schools and 20% of middle schools have significantly increased the time allotted for core classes and and eliminated phys ed and recess altogether. Now, a child's health is not to be sacrificed because of budget cuts. Now's the time for us to stand up and make a change, help make a change. So one of the solutions is you've got to voice your concerns. Now, Dr. Sandra Hasnick, she's from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she states that we need to let the districts know, end quote, that this is not okay. We need to bring these classes back. We need to write letters to the members of the local school board, and if you and other parents raise your voices, you might make a change, end quote. She also states that it's a good idea to go on your local school board. And another way to make a change, to help this become a solution, there's a Spark program that can be instituted in your schools. Ann Plachette Murphy, she's a parenting expert and author. She states in that same ESPN Outside the Lines interview, I quote, "With the Spark program, it can cost as little as $5,000 for an entire school for life. That includes training, books, and follow-ups." She also states in that same article that Spark can help locate grants, federal grants, to get this physical education program started. So here we are, as our nation is going through a crisis of obesity. Our children are also going through a crisis in the schools, a lack of physical education. Due to budget cuts and the No Child Left Behind laws, schools are diminishing or eliminating PE classes and recess altogether. We as parents need to take a stand and let our voices be heard that this is not acceptable. I'm asking you to join the fight, write letters, attend school board meetings, contact your state and national officials. Attending school board meetings is a great way to get your voices heard. And you have to remember that you're not being annoying parents, you're being concerned parents.